Welcome back. Most people think they cannot focus because they are weak or lazy. That sounds true. But it is not the real problem. What breaks your focus is not a lack of effort. It is the way you react to everything around you. Small things, noise, thoughts that do not matter. You feel busy all day. Your mind never stops. Yet at the end of the day, nothing important really moves. If you noticed this earlier, you would stop blaming yourself so much. You would see that you are not lost. You are just stuck in a quiet loop that looks like progress from the outside. Stay with this thought for a moment. Do not rush to fix it. Do not try to improve it yet. This video is not here to motivate you. It is here to say the things you already feel but keep avoiding. This is English Awakened. We talk about what needs to be said. Part 1. The loop. The pattern you repeat without noticing. You wake up with a plan. Not a big one, just a simple idea of what today should look like. You tell yourself today, I will focus. Today, I will not waste time today. I will finally move a little closer. And for a moment, it feels possible. Then the day starts. You check one thing, then another. You respond to something small. You fix something that is not broken. You think about something that can wait. None of these things feel wrong. That is why the loop is hard to see. From the outside, your day looks full. Your mind looks active. Your body looks busy. But inside, nothing really settles. You move, but you do not arrive. This is the loop. It does not feel like being lost. It feels like being almost there again and again. Most people think the loop means they lack discipline. They think they need more force, more control, more pressure. So they push. They try to wake up earlier. They try to plan harder. They try to fix themselves. But the loop stays. Because the loop is not about effort. It is about reaction. Watch closely. The moment something feels unclear, you react. The moment something feels heavy, you escape. The moment something feels slow, you replace it with noise. Not because you are weak, but because this reaction is familiar. It feels safe. The loop protects you from staying too long with one uncomfortable thing. You tell yourself, I am just checking. I am just preparing. I am just waiting for the right moment. But the right moment never comes because the loop keeps moving. Imagine a clock. The second hand never stops. It moves smoothly, quietly, without effort. At first, you do not notice it. You only notice when you look again and time is gone. Your focus works the same way. It is not stolen. It is spent on many small reactions that feel harmless alone, but heavy together. Here is the part most people avoid. The loop is not caused by distraction. The loop is caused by comfort, not comfort in the happy sense, comfort in the familiar sense. You know this pattern. You have lived inside it for years. Even when it hurts, it feels known. Trying to focus feels different. It feels quiet. It feels slow. It feels like nothing is happening. So the mind creates movement, a thought, a task, a reason to shift. And just like that, you are back in the loop. You might say, but I am trying. That is true. But notice what you try to do. You try to fix the feeling instead of staying with it. You try to improve the moment instead of letting it be empty. The loop feeds on this habit. The more you try to escape the feeling of not moving, the more you stay exactly where you are. Pause here for a second. Most people never stop long enough to see this. They blame time. They blame people. They blame motivation. But very few notice how fast they react when things become quiet. The loop is fast, but it is not loud. It does not shout. It whispers. Just do this one thing first. Just check this. Just wait a bit more. And you listen because it sounds reasonable. By the end of the day, you feel tired. Not the good tired, the empty tired, the kind that comes from moving without direction. You look back and try to remember what really mattered today. The answer feels unclear. That confusion is not random. It is the cost of the loop. And the hardest part is that tomorrow the loop will start again in a very familiar way. With good intentions. With quiet hope. With the same reactions. Most people never leave the loop because they never see it clearly. They think they need a new plan, a new goal, a new version of themselves. But none of that touches the loop. Because the loop is not about what you want. It is about what you avoid feeling when you slow down. In the next part, we will not talk about solutions yet. We will look at what keeps interrupting you every time you get close to real focus. Stay with that. There is another detail inside the loop that most people miss. The loop does not start in the middle of the day. It starts much earlier, before distraction, before noise. It starts the moment you feel a slight pressure to do something that matters. Not fear, just pressure. A quiet sense that says this is important, this deserves attention, this cannot be rushed. And right there the body reacts. Not with panic, with avoidance that looks reasonable. You stretch it a little. You prepare more than needed. You wait for a better state of mind. You tell yourself, I will start when I feel ready. But ready never arrives because the loop feeds on waiting. This is how the loop stays invisible. From the inside, it feels like patience. From the outside, it looks like delay. The mind is very good at protecting you from moments that demand presence. Presence feels heavy. It removes excuses. It removes movement. When you are truly present, there is nothing to hide behind. No noise, no rush, no reason to switch. So the loop offers relief. It gives you something else to do, something smaller, something easier to finish. That small finish gives a short comfort, a sense of progress, a sense of control, but it fades quickly. So you need another one. This is how the day fills up without anything deep being touched. Notice how the loop never feels dramatic. It feels normal, routine, safe. That is why advice rarely works. Advice talks to your goals. The loop lives in your reactions. You can want something very badly and still stay in the loop, because wanting does not change reaction speed. Reaction is faster than intention. By the time you remember your goal, you have already moved away from it. Not far, just enough. Enough to say, I will come back later, and later becomes tomorrow. Another detail. The loop also changes how you talk to yourself. You start using softer words, not lies, just gentle excuses. I am tired. I need more clarity. Today is not the right day. None of these are false. That is why they work. The loop does not argue with you. It agrees. It says, yes, you are right. Rest a little, check one more thing. And because it sounds kind, you trust it. Over time, this trust becomes a habit. You stop questioning why you never stay with the hard, quiet part. You accept the loop as your personality. I am just like this. I lose focus easily. I need pressure to work. But this story is built after years inside the loop. It is not who you are. It is what repeated. If you slow the moment down, you will notice something important. The loop is strongest right before clarity, right before something clicks, right before direction appears. That is not an accident. Clarity removes options. It asks for commitment, and commitment feels like loss of comfort, loss of excuses, loss of familiar movement. So the loop pulls you back to where everything is still possible, but nothing is chosen. This is why the loop feels endless. You are not failing. You are circling. And circles have no edge until you stop walking. Stopping feels wrong at first. The body is used to motion. The mind is used to reaction. When you slow down, the loop gets louder. Thoughts speed up. Discomfort rises. This is the moment most people panic and jump back into motion. They think slowing down is the problem. But slowing down is the exposure. It shows the loop clearly, and seeing the loop is the first time you are not fully inside it. This part matters, because without seeing this, everything else sounds like advice, and advice cannot touch a loop that you believe is normal. Stay here a little longer, not to fix anything, not to change, just to notice how automatic the movement is when silence appears. That noticing is not the exit, but it is the first crack. Part 2. The interruption. Why you never stay with one thing. There is a moment that comes before every distraction. It is quiet, almost invisible. Nothing bad is happening. Nothing urgent appears. And that is exactly why it feels uncomfortable. Most people think interruption comes from outside, a sound, a message, a thought. But interruption often starts inside. It starts when the mind notices there is nothing to react to. No problem to fix, no signal to answer, no reason to move. So the mind creates one. This is not a mistake. It is a habit. You have trained your attention to wake up only when something pulls it. When nothing pulls attention, feels lost. So interruption feels like relief. Notice how it happens. You sit with one thing. You stay a little longer than usual. The noise fades, and then a strange feeling appears. Not stress, not fear. A soft pressure in the chest, a sense of being exposed. There is no distraction yet, only this feeling. Most people do not name it. They just escape it. The interruption arrives right on time. A thought says, check this first. A memory appears, this can wait. A small urge just for a moment. And you move. You do not call it interruption. You call it logic. This is the key point. Interruption does not feel like loss of control. It feels like a reasonable decision. That is why it repeats. If interruption were loud, you would resist it. But it is quiet, polite, familiar. It waits until focus starts to deepen. Not when you begin. When you begin is easy. Interruption comes when the surface is gone. When the mind has no noise to hide in. This is why people say, I cannot stay focused. What they really mean is I cannot stay with that feeling. The feeling of being alone with one thing. The feeling of no escape. Interruption saves you from that. It gives your mind a role again. Responder, fixer, thinker. Roles feel safe. Focus removes roles. It leaves only presence, and presence has no mask. This is why interruption feels personal. You do not just lose attention. You lose distance from yourself. So the mind steps in to protect you. It interrupts. Look at your own pattern. You interrupt yourself more than anything else does. Even without noise, even without screens, even without people. The moment the mind has no excuse, it invents one. And because the excuse feels small, you accept it. I will come back after this. But coming back requires passing through the same quiet moment again. And most people do not. They circle it. They stay busy around it. This is why days feel full but shallow. The interruption is not random. It is precise. It appears exactly when focus would change something, not in the first minutes, but in the minutes that matter. This is why motivation fails. Motivation pushes you to start. Interruption stops you from staying. They live in different moments. People try to fight interruption with energy, but energy makes the interruption stronger because energy creates more reaction, and reaction is what interruption feeds on. Here is something rarely said. Interruption is not the enemy of focus. Interruption is the guardian of comfort. It stands at the edge between what you know and what you would have to face if you stayed. So it appears every time you get close, not to harm you, but to keep you the same. Most people never question interruption. They think it is normal, human, unavoidable. So they build their life around it. Short tasks, quick wins, constant movement, and slowly they forget how it feels to stay with one thing without leaving. By the time they notice, focus feels impossible, not because it is gone, but because the interruption arrives too early every time. The interruption is fast, faster than thought, faster than intention. It does not wait for permission. It acts the moment stillness appears. If you watch closely, you can feel it forming. A small tension, a need to move, a reason to switch. Most people never pause here. They jump, and jumping feels like relief. In the next part, we will look at the cost of this habit. Not the cost you hear about, not success or failure, but the quiet cost that stays with you long after the day ends. Stay with that. Interruption is not only a habit, it is a choice you make before you notice you are making it. Not a clear choice, a quiet one, the kind that feels like instinct. You feel the moment stretch, nothing demands you, nothing pulls your attention, and the mind asks, what am I supposed to do now? This question is dangerous because it sounds innocent, but it hides discomfort. The discomfort of not being useful, not reacting, not producing. Most people are trained to feel valuable only when they respond. So when there is nothing to respond to, value drops. An interruption brings value back. You move, you answer, you switch, you feel needed again. This is why interruption feels right. It gives you identity. Without interruption, there is just you and the moment. No role, no proof. That space feels empty, but it is not. It is unfamiliar. And unfamiliar feels unsafe to a mind that lives on habit. So the interruption arrives before you can feel that emptiness fully. Another detail. Interruption also protects you from seeing how slow real change is. When you stay with one thing, you notice how little moves at first. No reward, no clear progress. This can feel disappointing. So the interruption saves you from that disappointment. It offers small wins, a finished message, a completed thought, a solved minor problem. These wins feel clean, clear. Focus feels messy. It does not close. It stays open. And open things create tension. Most people think they hate distraction. What they really hate is open attention. Open attention has no end point, no finish line. So the interruption closes the loop. It gives your mind a shape again. This is why you interrupt yourself even when you know better. Knowledge does not stop interruption. Awareness barely slows it, because interruption is emotional, not logical. It is a response to discomfort, not a mistake in thinking. When you interrupt, you are not failing. You are soothing something. And until you see what is being soothed, interruption will feel necessary. Another truth. Interruption grows stronger when your goals become unclear. Not because you do not care, but because clarity raises stakes. When stakes rise, the fear of doing it wrong appears. An interruption lowers stakes instantly. If you never fully stay, you never fully fail. So the mind chooses interruption as a quiet protection. Not from danger, but from self-judgment. You cannot judge what you never complete. This is why some people stay busy for years without moving forward. They are not lazy. They are protected. Protected from disappointment. Protected from regret. Protected from facing their limits. Interruption makes this possible. It keeps life in motion without conclusion. If you look closely, interruption always comes with a reason that sounds kind. Just rest a bit. You deserve a break. You will do it better later. And because it sounds gentle, you trust it. But over time, this gentleness becomes erosion. Not a collapse. A slow wearing down. You begin to doubt your ability to stay. Not because you tried and failed, but because you never stayed long enough to know. This doubt feels personal. I cannot focus. Something is wrong with me. But the problem is not focus. The problem is you learn to leave at the exact moment focus would test you. The interruption trained you. Every time you left, the discomfort passed. So the mind learned leaving works. Now it leaves faster. Earlier. Sometimes before focus even begins. This is how interruption becomes automatic. You do not notice it anymore. You only notice the result, the feeling of never quite arriving, of always preparing but never standing still long enough to see what is actually there. In the next part, we will not talk about how to stop interruption. We will talk about what it quietly takes from you. Not in big dramatic ways, in small ways that add up over time. Stay with that thought. Into part 3, the real cost. What this habit quietly takes from you. The real cost of interruption does not show up right away. Nothing breaks, nothing collapses. Life keeps moving. That is why most people miss it. The cost appears slowly in how you feel about yourself when no one is watching. Every time you leave too early, something small changes. Not in your results, but in your trust. You begin to hesitate before starting. Not because the task is hard, but because a voice appears. Will I stay this time? You do not say it out loud. You feel it. And that feeling stays. After many small exits, you stop expecting yourself to remain. You lower the bar without noticing. I will just do a little. I will stop when it gets heavy. This sounds gentle, but it trains doubt. Not dramatic doubt. Quiet doubt. The kind that follows you even into simple moments. You start to feel that something is missing. Not motivation. Not discipline. Integrity. Not moral integrity. Internal integrity. The sense that your actions match your intention. When that breaks, the damage is subtle. You begin to avoid stillness. Not because you are busy, but because stillness reflects you back to yourself. And what you see feels unfinished. So you stay in motion. Motion becomes a shield. You stay active so you do not have to feel the gap between what you meant and what you did. Over time, this gap becomes familiar. You stop calling it a problem. You call it life. This is the cost no one talks about, not failure, but self-distance. You are always near yourself, but never fully with yourself. You plan, you intend, you imagine. But when the moment comes, you leave. And leaving becomes normal. The more normal it feels, the harder it is to notice. Until one day, you sit quietly and realize you do not fully trust your own attention. You cannot lean on it. This is painful, not because of what you lost, but because of what you could have built if you stayed. Not success, not status, a stable inner ground. Without it, everything feels heavier. Decisions feel harder. Goals feel far. Even rest feels restless. You try to fix this with more input, more ideas, more plans, more information. But the cost did not come from lack. It came from absence, the absence of staying. Another cost is how you relate to time. Time stops feeling open. It feels urgent. You feel late even when nothing is due. Because deep down, you know how often you walked away. Urgency hides that knowledge. If everything is urgent, nothing can be fully faced. So urgency feels useful. It keeps you from looking back, but it also keeps you from settling into the present. This is why even free time feels uneasy. You sit down and feel a pressure to fill the space, not with joy, with activity, because empty time reminds you of all the times you did not stay. The cost also touches how you see your goals. They stop feeling alive. Not because they are wrong, but because they remind you of unfinished moments. So you distance yourself. You say you changed. You say you grew out of them. Sometimes that is true. Often it is just avoidance wearing a calmer face. This is the quiet erosion, not dramatic enough to demand attention, but steady enough to change how you move through your own life. Most people do not notice this cost until they are very tired. Not physically, existentially. They feel scattered even when life is simple. They feel heavy even when nothing is wrong. They say, I do not know what I want anymore. But often they know. They just do not trust themselves to stay with it. That is the real cost, not lost focus. Lost self-confidence in staying. In the next part, we will not try to repair this. We will look at the space that appears when you stop running from it. No solution yet. Just a different direction. There is a deeper cost that sits underneath everything else. It is not visible in your schedule, not visible in your habits. It lives in how you speak to yourself when no one hears. After a long time inside interruption, your inner voice changes. It becomes careful, reserved. You stop making clear promises to yourself. You say, I will try, instead of I will stay. This sounds mature, but it hides fear. Fear of disappointing yourself again. So you keep things vague. You leave space to escape. And every time you escape, the voice becomes quieter. Not kinder, just weaker. You stop trusting it. This is why clarity feels dangerous. Clarity removes excuses. It asks a direct question. Are you going to stay or not? Most people avoid that question because they already know how often they left. So they keep things blurry. Blurry goals, blurry plans, blurry days. Blurriness feels safe when trust is low. But it also drains energy. Your mind works harder when nothing is clear. It spins, it reviews, it reconsiders, and that spinning feels like thinking, but it leads nowhere. This is another cost, mental fatigue without progress. You feel tired even when you did not do much, because indecision is work, avoidance is work. Carrying unfinished things is work. Over time, this tiredness becomes part of your identity. You say, I am just tired these days, but the tiredness is not from effort. It is from friction. Friction between intention and action, between knowing and staying. Another cost shows up in confidence. Not loud confidence, quiet confidence. the kind that lets you sit calmly with a hard thing. That confidence fades when you keep leaving. You begin to doubt your ability to endure, not pain. Silence. You can handle stress. You can handle pressure. But silence where nothing distracts you feels heavier. So you avoid it, and slowly you stop trusting quiet moments. You fill them quickly. This makes life noisy even when it should be simple, and noise becomes normal. When noise is normal, peace feels strange. You sit in a calm moment and feel uneasy. You look for something to fix, not because there is a problem, but because your system is used to interruption. This is a loss most people never name, the loss of ease, not happiness. Ease. The ability to be with yourself without tension. Another cost appears in how you remember your days. They blend together. Not because nothing happens, but because nothing lands. You move from one thing to another without letting anything settle. So memory has nothing to hold. Weeks pass and feel empty, even though they were full. This emptiness is confusing. You feel like time is disappearing. But time is not disappearing. Your attention is. Without attention, experience does not root. Without rooting, nothing feels solid. This creates a strange feeling of floating through your own life, present but not grounded. You might try to fix this by adding meaning. You read, you listen, you think. But meaning does not come from adding. It comes from staying. And staying is exactly what interruption trained you to avoid. Another cost is how you relate to difficulty. Any difficulty now feels heavier than it should. Not because it is harder, but because you do not trust yourself to remain inside it. So difficulty triggers urgency. You rush to solve. You rush to move. You cannot let difficulty breathe. And this rush often creates mistakes. Then you blame yourself for those mistakes. This creates a loop inside the larger loop. Avoidance creates error. Error creates self-criticism. Self-criticism creates more avoidance. The cost compounds, not in obvious ways, in tone, in posture, in how you approach anything that asks for depth. Eventually, you start choosing shallow paths without realizing it. Not because you want shallow results, but because depth now feels unsafe. Depth demands staying. And staying reminds you of all the times you left. This is where people say, I feel disconnected. Disconnected from what? Not from others, from themselves, from their own capacity to remain. This disconnection hurts quietly. There is no clear moment where it breaks. It just thins. Like fabric worn over time, you can still use it, but it does not protect you the same way. This is the real cost, not failure, not wasted time, but a weakened relationship with your own attention. And attention is where choice lives. When attention weakens, choice weakens. Life starts to feel reactive. Things happen and you respond. Rarely do you stand still long enough to decide. This makes you feel small, even when your life is not. Not powerless, but carried by habits, by patterns, by interruptions. Most people accept this as adulthood, as reality. But it is not reality. It is conditioning, and it can only continue if it stays unseen. That is why this part matters, not to judge yourself, but to see clearly what has been slowly taken. In the next part, we will not fix this loss. We will sit in the space that appears when you stop filling every moment. That space will feel uncomfortable. but it is also where your attention starts to return. Part 4. The empty space. The moment most people rush to fill. There is a moment that appears only when you stop leaving. It does not announce itself. It does not feel important. It feels empty. You finish one small action and do not replace it. You sit and do not reach for anything else. Nothing happens. This is the space most people avoid, not because it is painful, but because it is quiet. In this space, there is no role, no task, no reaction, just you and the moment you did not escape. At first, the body resists. A tension appears, a need to move. The mind looks for reasons. You should do something. This is a waste of time. You could be more productive. Do not argue with these thoughts. They are not wrong. They are just early. The empty space feels wrong because you are not used to it. You trained yourself to fill every pause. So when the pause stays, the system reacts. This reaction is not failure. It is withdrawal. You are stepping away from constant stimulation. Withdrawal feels like discomfort before it feels like calm. Most people never stay long enough to feel the calm. They fill the space again and call it focus. But focus does not arrive by filling. It arrives after you stop filling. Stay with the emptiness a little longer than usual. Do not look for meaning yet. Meaning comes later. First comes presence. Presence is simple, but not easy. It asks you to feel unfinished without fixing it, to feel unclear without escaping. In this space, nothing improves. And that is the point. Improvement is a future idea. The empty space is now. If you can stay here without rushing, something changes quietly. Your attention slows, not dramatically, almost unnoticeable. The noise does not stop. It fades. Thoughts pass without pulling you. You notice them and they leave. This is not control. It is allowance. The empty space does not give answers. It gives ground. A place where attention can land without being dragged away. Most people think they need motivation to focus. What they need is tolerance for this space. The tolerance to feel nothing happening without creating movement. This tolerance is what interruption took from you, and this is where it returns. Not all at once. In small moments. You do not hold the space. You visit it. You stay a few seconds longer than last time. That is enough. The empty space is not the goal. It is the doorway. If you try to use it, you will lose it. If you let it be, it stays. This is why it feels fragile, because it does not respond to force, only to patience. In the next part, we will not turn this into a method. We will talk about one quiet choice that changes how often you reach this space. Nothing big, nothing heroic. Just one turn you can make when the urge to escape appears. Part 5. The quiet choice. The moment you usually rush past. There is always a moment right before you leave. It is short, almost invisible. Most people never notice it because they move too fast. But if you slow down just a little, you can feel it. A tiny urge to switch, to check, to change what you are doing. This urge does not shout, it nudges. And this is where the quiet choice lives. Not in deciding your future, not in fixing your habits, only in this moment. Most people think the choice is to stay or to leave. That feels heavy. So they leave. But the real choice is smaller. Do I react right now, or do I wait a little? Waiting does not mean staying forever. It means not moving immediately. A few seconds, that is all. This is not discipline. It does not require strength. It requires noticing. When the urge appears, you do not push it away. You do not follow it. You let it exist. This feels uncomfortable because you are not used to it. Your body expects movement. Your mind expects relief. But nothing breaks if you do not move. The urge rises, then softens. Not because you fought it, but because you did not feed it. This is the quiet choice. Most people miss it because they look for big decisions, change careers, set new goals, rebuild life. But focus is rebuilt in moments this small, moments where you pause instead of reacting. You do not need to win the moment. You just need to see it. Seeing slows it down, and slowing down creates space. That space is where attention returns. Not perfectly, not permanently, but enough. Enough to stay a little longer with one thing. Enough to feel grounded instead of pulled. This is why methods fail. Methods live in the future. The quiet choice lives now. You do not carry it with you. You meet it again and again. Some days you miss it. Some days you catch it. Nothing dramatic happens either way. But over time, something shifts. You begin to trust yourself again. Not because you stayed perfectly, but because you noticed when you left. That noticing changes the relationship. You are no longer inside the loop without awareness. You are standing near it, watching, and that distance matters. From there, focus stops feeling forced. It feels available, not always, but often enough. The quiet choice does not fix your life. It does not solve your goals. It only changes how quickly you escape. And that is enough to let attention grow back. Slowly, naturally, without pressure. You do not need to change everything today. You do not need a new plan. You do not need more effort. If you take anything from this, let it be this. Notice the moment before you react. You do not have to stay forever. You only have to see it. That small pause is enough to begin. Nothing else is required right now. This is English Awakened. If this helped you stay a little longer, you can like the video and subscribe. Then return to your day without trying to improve it.